climate scientists and activists are staring down a looming threat to our way of life.
We need to keep the fossil fuels in the ground, and we need to focus on equity.
Norway is a rich country. It has $1 trillion in the bank, so to say. That money was made from the country's vast oil reserve.
What is the biggest war you have read about? World War II? Or the wars of ancient Greek gods? Or you would talk about the wars happening in the modern times? No other war is as big as the war against environment pollution that the human race has ever confronted. We are all in a war against the challenges put by the changes in atmosphere, and the world is united to lower the level of carbon emissions to save the planet. One of the major countries leading the world in positive climate change is the Scandinavian country, Norway. Norway is a home to natural wonders and breathtaking beauties that makes the country a role model to the other parts of the planet. After the countries in Europe and around the world has reached the agreement to achieve net zero carbon emissions by the year 2050, Norway has been a leading country in this green movement. The highest number of electric cars and the largest share of renewable energy usage is already achieved by the country to ensure the reduction of carbon emissions. Though Norway has been a leading figure in the green movement around the world, the darkest truth behind the country's economic success is its oil industry. It is an open secret that Norway is home to a large segment of world oil reserves, and it is one of the largest oil exporters in the world. Only oil, it ranks among the top countries in exporting fossil fuel. In the year 2019, oil and gas accounted for 48.1% of the national export revenues. This makes almost half of the export income for the country. The revenue of Norway from fossil fuel exports was $52.6 billion in 1 year in 2019. While the world follows Norway for creating a green environment faster than others and ensuring a peaceful society, the country has paid for much of it based on the fossil fuel extracted from different parts of the region. But with time, the world is slowly moving away from the use of oil and gas. While the Norwegian economy largely depends on this sector, this case study explores if the Norwegian economy can survive the challenge put by the New World Order, where oil and gas will lose their value with time. The population of Norway is not much, and it is home to around 5 million people. The country is a leading economy among the European region and has a GDP of $75,000. Norway has the 11th highest GDP in the world. This makes the country a formidable player in global economy. Not only these, Norway is the top country based on Human Development Index. Simply, it is a dreamland in this chaotic world. After the 1960s, fossil fuel was first discovered and extraction began in Norway. Currently, the petroleum industry of Norway is one of the major sources of national income to the country. And most of the fossil fuel generation fields of Norway are state-owned. This showed the devotion of the state towards oil extraction, and they know the value of oil extraction to the economy. The state-owned fuel extraction company Equinor has around 50 oil fields. Not only that, 67% share of the Norwegian oil industry is held by the government. On the other hand, 33% of it is held by the private entities. Not only from oil extraction, Norway makes a large sum from the gas extraction industry. By the end of last decade, the country made a revenue of $112.3 billion only in 2020 from the sales of gas. However, the government of Norway understands the importance of diversification and knows well that the oil industry would not last forever. To make the future secure, the country has invested a portion of the surplus made by the fossil fuel industry as pension fund for the future generations. This pension fund is the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world and is around $1.5 trillion in the year 2023. Though, you might think, this fund is enough to secure the future for Norway, you are wrong. There are some complex issues that the government has to deal with while ensuring the future for the upcoming generations. The first thing you need to understand is if oil money has corrupted Norway or not. In some parts of the Middle East and Africa, oil has been the key factor that boosted their economies for the first time. Where Emirates like Dubai, Qatar, Saudi Arabia has used their oil money properly, some countries have terribly failed due to corruption. The secret of Norway's success in the global stage is, it has remained away from corruption and successfully used its oil money. Research suggests that 90% of the people living in the country expressed that they were satisfied with the healthcare, judiciary system, education, and other aspects of life. Good governance throughout every sector has been a key to Norway's success using its oil money. The government of Norway has created a relationship of mutual trust with its people which is benefiting the macroeconomic structure of the country. But the problem here is, Norway has taken good measures to make itself better, but the level of oil exports done by the country is not helpful to the global climate. The country has established strict environment protection laws and heavily invested in renewable energy sector. But still, their net zero target is debatable due to the immense population caused by the countries who export oil from Norway. While Norway has established itself as a role model for net zero carbon emissions to the rest of the world, this structure of a green environment has been only possible due to the environmental pollution made by the country's fossil fuels in other parts of the world. Around 65% of Norway's power supply comes from the renewable energy sector, which does not pollute the environment or pollutes really less compared to fossil fuel-based industries. Norway targets to achieve 100% of energy supply from the renewable energy sector by the next decades. But a large sum of money for investing in the renewable sources of power is the export of fossil fuels to the rest of the planet. Though, stating Norway as the single polluter of environment would not be a justified thing to do. While Norway produces 2% of global oil, Russia and Saudi Arabia accounts for 24% of production combined. And USA produces 18% of world's oil. But Norway also plays a role in the natural gas industry as it is the third largest gas exporter in the world. The country exports 114 meters of gas every year to the rest of the world. Norway has not only established its economic structure, environmental structure with the help of oil and gas, but also, the country has made itself so crucial to all the other parts of Europe that they depend on them for fossil fuel supplies. It has made itself a major player in the European politics only based on its oil reserves. The country is accountable for the exports of 25% of gas alone to the countries in the European Union. The safeguard of Europe's energy security depends heavily on Norway. After the start of the Russian-Ukrainian war, Norway has recorded the highest ever revenue from oil and gas income. The country earned 1.5 trillion kroner, which equals to $140 billion in revenues only from the sales of fossil fuels in 2022. While in 2021, the country only made 498 billion kroner in 2021, it made 3 times larger revenue in 1 year due to the war. Panic situations and increased inflation in the region due to the war has helped the Norwegian government to earn so much. When Russia stopped delivering natural gas to other parts of Europe in 2022, everyone went to Norway for gas supplies. In this situation, Norway became the largest supplier of gas in Europe. Also, the gas prices rose due to the higher level of demand and many started calling Norway as a war profiteer. A war profiteer is not respected in any aspects whether it is a country, company, or a person. Though, Norway has reportedly rejected the label of war profiteer and pledged aid of 75 billion during the fiscal years of 2023 to 2027. However, as the export of fossil fuels contradicts all the philosophy of Norway and the Green Movement, still it is also a major contributor to the economy of the country. Fossil fuel industry accounts for 14% of the Norwegian GDP. So, the government cannot stop production or reduce production in one day to save the environment. The country has rather fallen into a paradox where it is bringing money by polluting the environment, and then, reinvesting it to make a better environment. And, the recent boom in gas and oil prices has encouraged the Norwegian government to offer more official licenses for oil and gas extraction, which brings economic prosperity to the region. The country has already planned to increase fuel exports and made itself a blind player against the global carbon emissions. In such a situation where you become the beneficiary of a major crisis, it is not easy to refuse the growth of the sector. Oil and gas have been major contributors to the Norwegian economy over the past few decades. You cannot just blame the Norwegian government for its dependence on the sector. But it needs to come out of the pollution paradox if it actually wants to make a change and build a better future for the upcoming generations. And this was only the case of Norway. Many countries around the world are heavily dependent on the production, exports, and imports of fossil fuel. The only way to make a change is to change things globally, rather than a nation's perspective. Otherwise, we will not be able to win this war against the environment. What do you think would be the best way Norway can get out of the pollution paradox? Let us know in the comments below.